Nice to know you're still watching. It's Nigeria Decides 2019 on Plus TV Africa. I am Ekene Ezeji.
And I am Felicity Ezewike. From the information we have, results are still being sorted and collated across states where elections held today, and definitely we are monitoring.
Yes, our reporter is at the INEC office here in Lagos, and as soon as he has updates for us, we will share it with you. But first, as part of analyzing INEC's performance in the conduct of today's elections, we'll take some reports from our correspondents in the field.
Stay with us.
Registration area center 2 in a Chiosa local government area. Most of these squad members who served as presiding officers in a Chiosa local government area protesting, saying that they are willing, that they're mostly unwilling to submit their results from their various polling units if INEC refuses to pay them the stipulated 15,000 naira that they have agreed to pay them. Again, the agitation is that most of their colleagues on the mainland had received 15,000 naira while they had just been paid 5,000 naira this morning before they headed for their different polling units. They are willing to carry out a full-fledged protest should INEC be unwilling to bend. Former chairman of a Chiosa local government area, without success, attempts to pacify these aggrieved core members.
What I want to know is, this money you are requesting for, is that your salary?
The first thing is that every money we have been paid, there has never been a time INEC identify what the money is for.
Yes,
so to this money again, they called us that come and collect 5,000, and we lined up accordingly.
And after with that said,
5,000. So we don't know what the money is for, but we know that the money is general. So why is it that this particular place we are being paid less?
I'm not trying to make a case for INEC, but INEC is claiming that the money they were claiming is just a gift. It's not a real remuneration that's supposed to pay for them by government. So it's confusing.
The core members who have refused to be pacified say there is no going back on their demand on INEC.
Other places, why are they paying 15,000 naira? If truly this money is illegal, we are not happy. They find remain that we have been so committed. We have worked tirelessly throughout the period of this exercise. But we are not happy that these people are not appreciating us. We have worked. We have worked. They are not appreciating. Look at where we sleep. This is where we sleep. Throughout yesterday, this is where we have been sleeping. We sleep here with mosquito. Throughout the period, we have been here. We'll go out and work. People will bring money, and some person will just connive and then go get away with the whole money like that. They are not appreciating us, and we are not happy.
Mary Chinda for Plus TV Africa.
That was quite hurtful to watch, really. Well, we won't be having this conversation alone. We have guests with us in the studio. Martins Lumba, political analyst, thank you very much for coming in. And of course, Lulu Elegbe, political affairs analyst, thank you very much. Okay. Public affairs analyst. It just didn't sound right when I said that. Okay, you saw that video. What's your immediate reaction? I'm not going to put words in your mouth. Let me come to you, Lulu.
Again, I don't think for me the issues aren't that clear, but it seems like there's money that should be going to these NYSC guys, and for some reason it's not happening. If that's the case, then it goes back to the question of INEC's preparedness in terms of things that should happen, things that should have happened leading up to this election. Because we all know that NYSC have always served as, corpers have always served as ad hoc staff every election. So, again, it raises further questions as to how prepared INEC has been for this election. We've had this recurring conversation about things not being ready. I know there were questions about budget and budgets not being passed, but 9 out of 10 problems we've seen in this election has nothing to do with money. This one apparently does. So it just goes back to the same thing. Where was INEC really prepared? And I think I mentioned on the show yesterday that I'm not impressed with the INEC chairman at all. I think he's done a really bad job. at the end of the day, yes, we've had an election. Yes, we've had the issues, but generally speaking, I would say a lot of it has been reasonably free and fair. As far as this one, the state elections have been concerned, we haven't heard that much of violence, which is a welcome development. But the fact that we're having these conversations again, this is on the back of a postponement by I think by a week, from 16th to 23rd, from 2nd to the 9th. It just shows that they weren't prepared. The planning, again, I go back to what I've been saying since, it's just bad planning. It's just not happening properly.
The truth of the matter is, this particular incident delayed the start of voting. I was at Ikeja most of today, and the polling units where I was did not commence activities until 11 o'clock. So there's always a backlash to every mistake, so to speak, that occurs. But why would such a discrepancy occur in payment if there is supposed to be a uniform payment across board? Why are these people in this particular local government having this kind of issues? Your thoughts?
It seems to me that INEC decided that all of their actions for this election will be analog, apparently. Because if you want to make payment, at least in today's world, I don't think there's really any issue. You don't have to go through all those processes that we used to do when we were in the bank then, writing schedule and all that. You just make a transfer. You have the person's account details, and there's no story about it. Even while they were there protesting, if their monies were somewhere, you just transfer their money. But because INEC chose to go analog this time, apparently it didn't really come as a surprise. They didn't plan very well. Even for an analog exercise, they didn't plan very well, and we're paying dearly. I must say that some people have to be sanctioned.
I must raise the defense that one INEC official gave when he was interviewed by a sister station, that all payment was done directly from the CBN, that if these people have issues with payment, it has to do with their bank details. And going by that report, a former chairman of Ethiopia said that he does not believe that was part of the legitimate payment that was supposed to be given to them. That was just like a gift for them, So there seemed to be...
A gift from which source?
Good question. Good question. Right now, we can't really say where that gift is coming from.
We need to find out the source and probably, investigate the source.
Okay, let me just ask Lulu, because you said you're not happy with the chairman this time around. Can we be more specific? In what areas? Because when we listened to his apologetics after the first delay, he did say that, look, he gave us lots of figures to help us understand the context of why they're struggling to meet some of these deadlines. Did that not resonate with you? Okay,
first of all, there was no apology. What he said was INEC regrets any inconveniences that might have been caused, which to me is as ridiculous a no apology as it gets. When the dates of the 16th and the 2nd were announced a year ago, everyone has planned their lives around those dates for over a year. And then on the morning of the 16th, you then come and say, it's been postponed for these reasons. It meant everyone had to reorder everything they had done for the past year. And the INEC chairman stands there and says any inconvenience that might have been caused. That's ridiculous, first of all. Okay. Second of all, the things he listed, the facts, the figures, I think the fact that he was making all these, he was saying all these things, which we knew. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm not minimizing the effort of INEC, or I'm not under any illusion that it's an easy job or that they had a lot of work to do. But my point is, he did not mention one single challenge that is new. Okay. He didn't mention one single challenge that didn't happen 4 years ago or 8 years ago. Okay. So he said that the project plan for the 2019 election was ready as at, I think, December 2017. My question would have been, okay, when you got that project plan ready, did you take into did that plan factor in the issues that we've had in the past and how to mitigate those and make sure that those things don't happen in 2019. First of all, did you do that? If you did not do that, why not? If you did do that, why did the same things happen? I mean, we talked yesterday about the INEC office that got burnt in Akwa Ibom.
Yes.
INEC offices got burnt in 2011. INEC offices got burnt in 2015. So I don't understand how he keeps sounding like these things are catching INEC unawares. I don't
Permit me to act
Sure.
as his, you say, his advocate to some extent. What I understood, some of the reasons he gave were to do with the materials having to come at the last minute to avoid people destroying them. How do you mitigate against something like that if after you've taken all those measures, people still come and actively...
Yeah, but this is what I'm saying. It's about risk assessment and risk. If you're in project management, a major part of what you're doing is assessing risk and figuring out how to mitigate them. Because if you're saying that you've taken X and X steps, but these things still happened, these things happening weren't any different from things that happened in the past despite mitigations. So it means that the mitigation steps that had been taken 4, 8, 12 years ago didn't work. If they didn't work, you can't use those same steps in 2019. You don't recycle plan A. If something is not working, you move to plan B. If it didn't work 4 years ago, it means it's not working. You don't recycle it and then come and tell us that these are the challenges. We already knew these were the challenges. Some of these states, I mean, we were talking, I think we were talking in the green room about Taraba. Taraba is about 20 times the size of Lagos. But Taraba didn't grow bigger between 2015 and 2019. It's the same state. Same thing with Borno, same thing with Niger and all these other states. So I cannot, believe me, I understand the logistical challenges of moving things to these massive, massive states. I get that. But my point is, these states haven't gone any bigger. These states where that has always been their size. So how was it done in 2015? Where were the failures in 2015? Where were the successes in 2015?
All right, let's move it. We're still on INEC preparedness, actually, but let's look at another aspect of it. There is something that's also recurrent that seems to has raised its ugly head, the one of underage voting. There is a report by Premium Times, and one of the journalists there said he was abducted after he started taking pictures of underage voters in Nasarawa State. And on the back of that, yes.
Okay.
That's the report from Premium Times. Then on the back of that, the Situation Room talked about underage voting. And then we have vote buying also in the mix of this. These are on the heels of, recurrent issues. How can, INEC better manage these situations? They keep coming. They assured us that there will be no underage voting, and some journalist is now saying, I saw them with my eyes. There are pictures of them, even though they forced him to delete some of those pictures. He was still able to capture a few that he shared online. So what are we doing? Are we retrogressing or progressing? Is this something that we need to contend with every single time we have elections?
It's a straightforward answer. The template we're using is faulty. They chose to hold on to the analog pattern of this electoral process with their blood. That is why we're having
analog. You
this
keep saying
result.
analog. We have smart card readers now. That's like if you don't use it, you've committed
earlier today, I mentioned that the smart card reader didn't recognize my fingerprint.
Okay.
The last election, on the 23rd, today, it equally didn't recognize my fingers.
Are you sure you can?
Just a minute. At my polling unit, I'm sure the failure rate was probably 90%.
Wow.
So, and again, I mentioned earlier too that smart card device, as far as I'm concerned, I don't really see its purpose in this process, frankly speaking, especially when you say you do your accreditation, you vote immediately. It makes no meaning to me.
So how did you vote? Sorry, not to
how did I
distract
vote?
you, yes.
Well, the smart card, for all its worth, it was able to recognize my card. I want to believe that is why they gave it that name, smart card. You recognize cards, you don't recognize fingerprints. Yes, so that's what happened. If your card is recognized and they check they are registered, you are identified, your photo is there, and every other detail is correct, you are allowed to vote.
Sorry, you,
so
you don't see the purpose, but
no. Let me tell you what I mean.
You were saying analog. I just had to draw your attention to that before you continue.
Let me tell you what I mean. The smart card reader, what does it really do in the process? It doesn't reduce the number of people that we vote insofar as you are on that register. People have taken cases to court, and the judgment was, you know what, this smart card reader, we don't recognize it in our laws. So what is it doing there? Because it won't even change the narrative as of this moment.
Are you in agreement with what he's saying?
No,
I thought we've already dealt with the issue of the smart card reader and its relevance.
But I understand what he's saying, because at the end of the day, you don't really use the smart card reader to vote. The only thing it does is supposedly accrediting, and that's
it verifies that you are who you say you are.
Yeah, but in cases where they don't work, they do a manual accreditation process anyway.
Okay.
So if you're going to do a digital voting process, then do it all through.
Do it.
Don't do one half digital, the other half the normal paper voting, or just do everything. And so when you have this, I think this came up because of this issue of underage.
Yes, I was going to go into that.
This is why you still have this issue.
Yeah, the reason I interrupted, actually, sorry to have distracted you, but the reason I interrupted was your insistence that they're operating an analog system.
Yes.
And they are saying in their own way that they've done everything that they can to, at least at this level, meet up with the age of technology. And you also know that there are some things that's beyond them at the moment. The Electoral Act that's before the presidency was not signed, and even if it was, there still would have been issues. So if you keep having the blame on INEC, I mean, I don't know where we're going from that. It still does not take away from the fact that despite the smart card readers that we still have cases of underage voting and vote buying.
Very well.
How does this vote buying even make? I don't get.
The thing is, with regard to underage voting, I think the way we gather data in Nigeria, leaving INEC aside, we need to start from the basics. When you're born, they enter you into some register, analog register, digital register. When they do that, immediately you're 18. It has nothing to do with you going to one local government. The system already knows that you're 18. We need to do that. It has nothing to do with smart card. It's the smartest thing to do.
So that's when we'll have advanced in your...
Yeah, that is logical, because even as far back as how many years? Look, the American government has serious data, even of Nigerians. When they brought all this thing about, what is it called now, this visa lottery, you fill their form. They capture all of the details you put there. You can try 3 times, 4 times, 5 times, but they already have your data.
Okay, Lolu, it's clear we can do more. But let's look at INEC as maybe a body that are working within certain constraints, because, by virtue of being in Nigeria. What would you say they've done right? Because clearly they haven't done everything wrong.
Well, to be fair to INEC, they're hamstrung in certain cases by the laws. I think you talked about the card reader. I think, some of the cases I've gone to court have said that, you know what, the card reader is not in the Nigerian constitution. So we can't use it and all that. But part of the reason I think the process could be easier, I mean, it's 2019. There are things that we can do to make this thing a lot better. When I see plastic boxes, I mean, it's 2019, come on. I think I heard just a few minutes earlier that voting in Kogi, or in parts of Kogi,
there was a mix-up.
Because there were a mix-up of boxes, for crying out loud. I don't blame INEC for that, because like you said, they're working within the laws.
Certain constraints.
So they have to sort of do the best they can with what they have, and that's what they have. So if we want to make that process better, if we want to make INEC's life easier, then we need to be looking to change a lot of those laws. To be fair, I think like you mentioned earlier, there is an electoral act sitting on the president's desk, which he hasn't signed for some reason. I don't know why he hasn't signed it. That addresses some of these issues, because at the end of the day, it's when I think of the fact that we're still having certain types of conversations in this day and age, it's saddening. And it's not all on INEC, to be fair. It's a combination of, yes, INEC in some cases, the laws of our country in some cases, the politicians in some cases, and the voters in some cases. Because when you see, even people who even non-voters, the public generally, when you see people firebombing INEC offices, yes, INEC has a responsibility in terms of security, the arrangements with security, but it's still human beings that went to carry out those acts. And those people aren't just doing it randomly, they're obviously sponsored to do it. So until all those disparate parts somehow come together and address these issues, then we're going to keep having, because I keep going back to this issue about planning, because at the end of every election cycle starts the minute the last one ends.
Yes.
So whenever this election process finishes, the one for 2023 starts straight away. And I think part of what I would want to see from INEC, I mean, you mentioned what they did right. One of the things I think Professor Jega did right in 2015, which I'm not sure if they followed this year, is he created this RAC centers in some of the local governments so that they can get them to those remote parts of the
Yes, they still used it. I think that's one of the places where this protest took place.
Yes, so that makes a whole lot of sense to me, because if you're going to be moving sensitive materials around, again, I have issues with the way those materials are being moved, but that's a separate conversation. But it's not all bad. They're parts of it they just need to tweak and make sure it works for Nigeria. You can't, if we're saying that it's done this way in this country, a lot of things fail in Nigeria because we copy and paste things from other places. We don't put the Nigerian context into it.
Yes.
And we need to do that even with our electoral laws, even with our electoral processes. And I think INEC has a major part to play in that. Yes, there's the laws and they can't do anything outside of what the law says they can do. But again, that's where we come in. That's where we have to start pushing for the Senate, the House of Reps to start looking at changing some of these laws.
Okay.
And hopefully that happens before 2023.
Okay, Mr. Lumber, he says that's where we come in, and clearly the issues are multifaceted. Someone said when they were talking about places where they still had a delay, that why are we expecting too much? After all, these are civil servants who are from amongst us. Since when were we ever on time? So are we not expecting
too much?
I really didn't want to say that, but is it possible that we're expecting too much out of INEC?
Certainly not. For me, the job, as far as I'm concerned, is not so Herculean. As far as there are processes to be followed, every process simply means there is a flow. If you have a barrier and there's an alternative, you use it. I don't really see anything so cumbersome about running elections or doing events planning or doing project planning. So to that extent, with what we have in this modern society, I can't, I don't know how to put it. I can't excuse INEC, on any level, whether it's at the point of collating results or at the point of using card reader, whatever. These things, we don't do elections every month or every week. If a football body can be doing their World Cup every 4 years, and we see the beauty, for goodness sake, what are we crying over INEC for? If it means overhauling, if it means overhauling the entire INEC, I wouldn't really mind. Do
we have that wheel? Anyway, don't answer that. I was just saying that, do we have the wheel? But don't answer that. Let's do it because we have very limited time left on this segment before we take a break. I'd like to ask something on this presiding officers that are absconding in Imo State. We know that the presiding officer absconded in one in Owerri Municipal. We also know that one was caught with 500,000 naira in cash. We also know that there are some people that have been caught as fake INEC, pretending to be ad hoc staff of INEC, but because they wanted
to be soldiers.
Yes, or pretending to be soldiers. So, still on the impediment to INEC's efficiency, how can they manage this? Like, what can they do differently to ensure we don't have these cases of presiding officers? How do you check the integrity of the people that you want to use for such exercise?
Okay,
Quickly.
Biometrics. Before, we had a very big problem with ghost workers, ghosts everywhere. You keep paying salaries, but immediately they brought in biometrics. Excellent. The wage bill has gone down. So we introduced biometrics on the one hand with regard to staff. Then you must have a passcode to do anything. Immediately some security people see you. They ask you, yes, do you have that thing that we're looking for? If you don't have it, they detain you. You understand? It's as simple as that. I really don't know why this thing looks as if we need to go to a shrine and do some... These things are so simple, for goodness sake. You have a handset, they tell you put password. How is that a big deal? Are you with me? How is that something that will require a conference or that will require the National Assembly to... These things are already in existence. We don't need to generate any new thing. Are you with me? So to that extent, we should just get this thing going.
Okay, but perhaps someone could also argue that the human factor would still obstruct any electronic.
Beautiful.
So, for example, you know, even if you put biometrics in place and you still have somebody who is intent on rigging.
Punishment will take care of that.
Okay.
Once you get somebody that is caught, you make him a good example why nobody else should try it again, and it will stop.
All right, I guess we'll take a short break now. You're still watching Nigeria Decides on Plus TV Africa. We'll go on a quick break. We'll be right back. Stay with us.